Well, another interesting story that we're following, the high price of cheap food. This week, Time magazine has an eye-opening look at how mass production is making our food supply less healthy, and in some cases even deadly. Brian Walsh wrote this story, joins me in the studio now. Brian, it is, on surface of it, frightening, common sense, but when you go through the layers of what you've written about, you realize it is insidious.
Well, that's a good way to put it. I mean, you have a system that's geared up towards producing just as many calories as possible, as cheaply as possible, and has been very successful in doing that, but very little care is taken into deciding, well, let's aim towards healthier food, let's aim towards healthier calories, and as a result, I mean, it's not terribly surprising we find ourselves in the obesity epidemic we have now, given the food that is out there.
So who's the villain here? Is there a villain?
I don't think I don't like to look at that as a villain. I mean, it's easy to see that and say, oh, well, the concentrated factory farms are the villain, or producers, but that's not the case. The system is what I found is that it's so connected. You put a lot of corn, you need fertilizer, that fertilizer ends up in the Gulf of Mexico creating environmental problems there. That corn then goes to raise relatively inexpensive meat. Of course, that, along with all the excess corn, high fructose corn syrup products that we make, goes towards obesity. So it's all connected, and I think it's not something was created out of any particular intention. It's just that's what arose.
So let's take a look at the price. I mean, vegetables more expensive than potato chips. Mm-hmm. Easy to sort of sit back and say, obviously make good decisions, but when food is cheap and it's at the local store and the packaging makes it so easy, right, it almost feels disingenuous to wag fingers.
It does. I mean, here we are, we're telling people that you have to eat healthier, you have to eat less, and yet the system that we've set up is such that that's actually quite hard to do. And it's interesting that we see higher levels of obesity in relatively poor communities. You go there, the choices that you have available to you on a nutritional level are just much less. You don't have the fruits and vegetables and so forth. You have the preserved foods, you have the processed foods that add to this problem.
Let's look at what we used to spend. 18% of 4 decades ago food, and 10% now. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about those figures.
Well, that's really just a measure of how much more productive the American farm sector has gotten. I mean, you can get more corn, you can get more wheat per acre thanks to intensified fertilizer, thanks to mechanization, ditto with farm animals as well, and that's helped bring the price down. And so that's good. I mean, it's not as if expensive food is always better, but rather we have to think about what is it cheap and what are the sort of added costs that we don't associate with the price tag that are making this less sustainable.
Michelle Obama put the shovel in the ground and made a big splash with the White House garden. Do you think anything's really come of it?
I think it does. I mean, certainly the food industry paid attention to that, and they know how much symbolic value what goes on in the White House garden has. And I think it's just a measure. There are writers out there like Michael Pollan. There are documentaries like Food Inc. that are really revealing the system, and people are caring about it. And that's the difference. I mean, we didn't really think much about where our food came from. It was there, we ate it, and it was less expensive. That was great. Now we're beginning to think on a holistic level. Where does it come from farm all the way to fork, and how can we make that system better?
And we're the first generation that's going to eat ourselves into an early grave.
Exactly.